It was supposed to be a quiet, relaxing evening at the Oak Grill, a family-owned restaurant nestled on the corner of Maple Street. The kind of place where people came to unwind after a long week, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses mixing with soft jazz in the background. It was the kind of place you felt at home, where the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. But tonight, something felt off. The air was thick with tension, even though nobody had said a word about it yet. I remember that night so clearly. It was a Friday, just another Friday night at the Oak Grill, but for some reason, it felt like it wasn't going to be just another evening. It wasn't the food. No, the food was as delicious as always. It wasn't the ambience dimly lit with that perfect, cozy glow that made everything feel like a special moment. It was Karen. She wasn't anyone special, not to me, anyway, just another customer. But boy, did she make herself known. At first, it was subtle. Little comments here and there about the decor, the service, even the food. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you were used to working in a restaurant. But something about her made me uneasy. The way she looked at me when she thought no one was paying attention. The way her eyes would linger, and that smile. It wasn't friendly. No, it was the smile of someone who thought they could get away with anything. She was sitting there with her husband, totally unaware of the storm she was about to unleash. I hadn't even noticed her at first, not really. I was just doing my job, serving plates of food, refilling drinks. But when I walked over to their booth with a fresh plate of salmon for the table beside them, that's when I felt it. The stare. I don't know what it was, but I could feel her eyes burning into the back of my head. Then, without warning, she called out. Her voice cut through the calm hum of the restaurant like a knife. "Excuse me," she said, way louder than necessary. "Are you really wearing that lipstick?" I paused for a second, a little taken aback. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the first time someone had mentioned my lipstick, but something about her tone made me feel like it was more than just a comment. "I'm sorry, ma'am," I said, keeping my voice steady, though I was already starting to feel the knot in my stomach. "Is there something wrong?" And that's when she really laid it on me. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at my lips like they were the most offensive thing in the room. "You're wearing that," she sneered, "that bright red lipstick right in front of my husband. Are you trying to get his attention?" Her words hit me like a slap, even though she hadn't touched me yet. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, but I held my ground. I wasn't about to back down. Her husband, who had been absorbed in the menu up until now, finally looked up, his eyes wide with confusion. "What's going on?" he asked, clearly startled by his wife's sudden outburst. I could see it then, the confusion on his face. He had no idea what was happening, but Karen wasn't done. Not by a long shot. "You heard me," she said, turning back to me, her voice rising just a bit more. "You're wearing that lipstick like you're asking for attention, especially with my husband sitting right here. How inappropriate." I felt my hands tremble, but I kept my composure. "Ma'am, I assure you that wasn't my intention," I replied, as calmly as I could manage. "It's just part of the uniform, and if there's anything I can do to make you feel more comfortable." Before I could finish my sentence, Karen stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She moved like a whirlwind, so fast that it caught the attention of nearly every table around us. I didn't know what was happening at first, but I soon found out. Without a word, she grabbed her glass of water from the table and, in one swift motion, flung it at me. The cold water splashed across my blouse, soaking me completely. I stood there, shocked, my heart racing as I blinked in disbelief. Gasps echoed around the room. I looked over at her husband was standing now, looking horrified, but it was too late. Before I could even react, Karen did something even worse. She raised her hand, and in the blink of an eye, she slapped me across the face. The sound of it was like thunder in the middle of the restaurant. A sharp, loud slap that left me standing there, frozen in place. Time seemed to stop for a second. I could feel the stares of every single person in that room on me. I blinked, trying to process what had just happened. The sting on my cheek was nothing compared to the disbelief in my chest. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't sure what to do. I wasn't sure what could be done. But Karen wasn't done either. She stood there, looking at me with that sense of superiority in her eyes like she'd just won some sort of battle. "That's what happens when people don't know their place," she muttered under her breath, her eyes scanning the room as if daring anyone to challenge her. "No one should be looking at my husband like that." She turned toward her husband, who was standing now, just as lost as I was. "Karen, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice shaking. But Karen wasn't hearing it. She grabbed his arm, pulling him back toward the booth like it was all some sort of twisted game. "Don't you see it?" she hissed, her voice frantic now. "She's practically begging for attention. She's flirting with you right in front of me. She's trying to stir things up." Her words were coming out fast, desperate, like she couldn't even grasp the fact that maybe, just maybe, she was in the wrong. Her husband didn't know what to say. He was frozen, looking from me to Karen, to me again. His face was a mask of confusion. "Karen, that was completely unnecessary," he said slowly. "You just slapped her. What do you think that's going to solve?" And that's when it hit me. It wasn't about lipstick. It wasn't about anything I'd done. It was about her. Her insecurity, her jealousy, her need to control. She needed to feel powerful, to tear someone else down in order to feel better about herself. I wasn't just a waitress to her. I was a target, a threat she had to eliminate. And just as she was about to lash out again, the manager finally arrived. I'll never forget the look on his face when he took in the scene. Karen, standing there like she owned the place, and me, soaked and shaking, unsure of what just happened. He stepped between us, looking at Karen with a calm, firm expression. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You can't treat our staff like this, and we cannot tolerate behavior like this in our restaurant." Karen's face twisted in disbelief. "You can't be serious," she said, her voice almost mocking. "I'm the customer here. I'm the one who's been wronged." "I'm serious," the manager replied. "If you don't leave immediately, I'll have to call the authorities. We don't tolerate assault in this restaurant." Karen tried to argue, but her husband stepped in, his voice strained. "Karen, let's just go. You've done enough." She hesitated, pride clearly bruised, but finally allowed him to guide her out. I stood there, trying to steady my breath, still unsure of what had just happened. As they left, the tension in the room slowly began to fade. The hum of conversation started again, like nothing had ever happened. But I knew it had. I would never forget it. The manager walked over to me, his face soft with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. I nodded, though my hands were still shaking. "I'm fine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I just didn't expect that." He gave me a reassuring smile. "You did your job, and you did it well. She was in the wrong. Don't let it get to you. We've got you covered." The rest of the night passed in a blur. I went through the motions of my shift, trying to hold it together, trying to focus on the customers who needed me. But inside, I was changed. I could still feel the sting of her slap, the injustice of it all. But I wasn't going to let it define me. I couldn't. Because at the end of the day, nobody could take away my worth. Not Karen. Not anyone. As I walked out of the restaurant that night, I held my head high, knowing that I'd survived something I never expected to face. I didn't deserve it, but I got through it. And that, I thought, was enough. So what do you think? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what happened and whether you think I did the right thing in handling it the way I did. Let's talk about it. After all, we all have a voice.